Everybody knows why Kamala Harris lost to Donald Trump.
Because what you've done ain't worth the shit.
Or at least they act like they do.
Election day was a cataclysm.
We do need to have conversations as a party.
I think Democrats a lot of times surround ourselves with people that will affirm what we already believe.
For the last few weeks, experts, pundits, and commentators have insisted that they know why Kamala Harris lost.
We told you this identity was disaster.
If you just chill out, then I think you can make better plans about how to go forward.
But I've been wondering, what do regular people think happened in this election? I've been wanting to talk to everyday Americans to hear the opinions of people who probably don't obsess over politics for a living. So I went to Atlanta, my hometown, to ask people what they saw as the reason for why Kamala Harris was unable to defeat a person many folks saw as a deeply flawed candidate.
Yeah, see, well, outrage won't get down like that. Man for woman, woman for man. That's it.
I think the Democrats are a little more divisive.
Should I say this on record? I don't think she lost Georgia. I think Georgia was stolen.
Tell me more about that. I spent this election cycle talking to voters all across the country and political spectrum, sometimes challenging the things that I was hearing.
It wasn't policy. It was white people.
It wasn't white people. It was
no. Let's be very clear. It was white people. No.
But in this video, I really wanted to listen, and I heard a few things that I think you should hear as well.
What would the Democratic Party have to do to get a person like you to vote for them?
I think if you listen closely, underneath many of these answers, there's something revealing about this political moment, a snapshot of where we are as a country.
You know, I have a daughter, and she asked me who I voted for, and my answer was, I voted for you.
And if you stick around throughout this video, I'll share a few of my own reflections about why this election ended the way that it did. This is why Kamala Harris lost, according to regular people. Let's dig in. This video is sponsored by Aura. More on that later. I think the takes that I encountered for why Kamala Harris lost can be broken down into three categories. Let's call the first one perception.
Hi, excuse me.
The very first person I talked to was a guy named Rich, an older white man who splits his time between Florida and Georgia.
Why do you think that Kamala Harris lost this election?
I think Kamala and the Democratic Party, they assume everybody that votes for Trump is a Nazi or evil. And they don't understand that they're just regular people, but they talk down to them. And I think that caused a lot of Trump votes.
Rich's perspective, for better or for worse, is probably more common than many folks in the Democratic Party would care to admit. This idea that Democrats are too judgmental, too high and mighty, too accusatory of Trump supporters, this take has come up often in the conversations that I've had with Trump voters over the last year. So I'm not surprised to hear it in this context as well.
You're saying Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party more broadly. Is this something that you think has been going on for some time, or is this more specific to Kamala Harris?
No, I would say it goes back to when Hillary ran.
You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
Bill Clinton didn't do it. You know, he was a Democrat. I'd say back to Hillary.
The problem, I think, is that Kamala Harris ran an intentionally inclusive campaign. She reached across the aisle, campaigned with Republicans. She condemned Joe Biden's garbage comment explicitly.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for. And I've made that clear throughout my career, including my speech last night before I think this all happened.
But for Rich, and I suspect for many others, it's hard to separate Kamala Harris from that broader, long-standing idea.
Both sides are divisive, and that bothers me, but I think the Democrats are a little more divisive because they call people names more than I get from the Republicans.
I'll be honest, I wasn't really sure what to say to this. The only way you can come to the conclusion that Democrats are the only people doing name calling is if you exist in a media bubble that doesn't show you this stuff.
She's a fake, a fraud, she's a pretender. Her and her pimp handlers will destroy our country.
Kamala has imported criminal migrants from prisons and jails.
She is the devil, whoever screamed that out. She is the Antichrist.
She is some sick bastard, that Hillary Clinton, huh? What a sick son of a bitch.
Again, my goal isn't really to criticize any of the people that I spoke to. These are regular folks. The only reasonable assumption is that they're doing the best they can with what they've got. But a lesson I've learned time and time again in my reporting is that perception is everything. and right-wing media is excellent at shaping narratives about anyone to their left, all while shielding Trump supporters from understanding, seeing, facing the grossest elements of his political movement.
Between now and the next election, what would you say to Democrats on how to speak to a voter like you?
Just move a little closer to the center and convince me that you want the whole country to get together.
Do you think it's possible for Democrats to change in a way that would, benefit them in upcoming elections?
I don't think that the issue is Democrats.
That's Dahate. He voted for Kamala Harris and had a very different perspective from Rich.
I think that's like asking, to me, do we think institutionalized racism would change? It could, but is it actually going to change?
Which brings me to this guy on a horse.
Did you vote for Donald Trump?
Yeah.
And I mean, this is interesting. What motivated you to vote for him?
Change. Change, mostly. What we got going on, all this craziness, all that. So, yeah.
When you say craziness, what comes to mind?
All this stuff about, the kids in school and, all types of just, nonsense that we shouldn't have to deal with, or our kids having to deal with. So, yeah.
And did you feel as though Kamala Harris was promoting that?
Of course she was.
In what way?
In plenty of ways. You've seen a lot of those interviews, so that speaks for itself. You see, it speaks for itself. A lot of those interviews she did. That's what they stand for. So, and I ain't with it.
I think he's referring to the interview cut into this ad.
Every transgender inmate would have access.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
That interview was from 2019. And the insane thing about this ad, to me, is that the gender-affirming care for prisoners policy that she's referring to, that policy, according to the New York Times, was the law during Trump's first term. But for some voters, this is perceived as a stain on Kamala Harris, all because she saw the law as a good thing.
And did you feel as though Kamala Harris was promoting that?
Of course she was.
I cannot emphasize enough the chasm, the gap between people's perception of basic facts in this election.
What would the Democratic Party have to do to get a person like you to vote for them?
Change their whole perspective of all that stuff right there. Cut out a lot of that. That's the main thing.
When you say that stuff, I think what comes to my mind is LGBTQ. Is that
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, well, our race won't get down like that. Man for woman, woman for man. That's it. Bottom line.
What do you say to someone who's you can be with a woman, but what's stopping somebody else from being with who they want to be with?
Ain't stopping nobody from being there. They got their belief and I got mine, and that's all it is to it.
Yeah.
So they can do what they want to do.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Everybody got to answer to God.
And for you, homosexuality or transgenderism is a sin.
A sin, definitely.
Okay, let me jump in right here and tell you about today's sponsor, Aura. Even though the election is over, I am still getting spammy text messages from PACs and politicians and advertisers. And this isn't exactly new. One of the reasons we get so many spam texts and calls is because big companies can't keep our data safe. So the question is, what can you do to protect yourself? Well, Aura, the sponsor of today's video, is here to help. Aura is a service that will alert you if they find that your phone number or any other sensitive information has been compromised. And they give you fast fraud alerts if someone tries to use that data to access your credit or bank accounts. On top of that, Aura does so much more to keep you and your family safe. You get things like transaction monitoring, a VPN, antivirus, a password manager, parental controls, and identity theft insurance, all in one app at one affordable price. They even have an AI-powered call assistant that will pick up unknown calls on your behalf to screen them for spam or scams. The AI then forwards legitimate calls to you so you don't miss appointments, deliveries, or emergencies, while blocking out the bad ones for you. Aura also protects you from harmful text messages by filtering out known spam numbers and scanning links in your text messages for phishing threats. I don't want to leave myself or my family vulnerable to data breaches. And if you don't want to do that either, go to aura.com/Garrison Hayes and try your first 2 weeks for free. A link is down in the description. Thanks again to Aura for sponsoring this video. Okay, so reason number one is perception. And I think based on the conversations that I had, reason number two is disengagement. I won't spend too much time here, but the most common answer that I got from folks both on camera and off camera was, I'm not into politics.
Wrong person to ask. Not into politics.
No, that's real. That's real. Thank you for your time. Yeah.
Kamala Harris lost to Donald Trump by about 1.5%. Low voter turnout absolutely played a part in this election. In fact, there's this map floating around the internet that shows who'd win each state if didn't vote was a candidate. That non-existent candidate would be president right now. Philadelphia saw about a 3% decrease in turnout. That 3% represents tens of thousands of votes in a heavily Democratic city. Pair that with the 2.1% increase in the rest of the state, and it becomes clear why Kamala Harris lost Pennsylvania. Michigan tells a similar story. Detroit saw a 4% decrease in turnout compared to 2020. And truthfully, I blame Democrats for this. I think Kamala Harris ran a pretty good campaign, which in hindsight was almost always destined to end in defeat. Between the ongoing US-funded genocide in Gaza, the Democratic Party's failures to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, their failure to effectively inform the public about what they've done. The truth is that Democrats came up short in giving the electorate something to vote for instead of just giving folks something to vote against.
I also feel like a lot of people are, from my peers that I spoke to, a lot of people are indifferent about the two. And a lot of people didn't vote. A lot of people didn't show up. So that's another huge part of the problem as well.
I think Dahate represents the third and final reason I heard for why Kamala Harris lost. America has a problem, and that problem is that we are impossibly divided. Whether it's some combination of sexism and racism.
Honestly, they didn't elect a white woman. I wasn't surprised they didn't elect a black woman.
People weren't willing to change. People don't want change. We say racism is dead, but it's really not.
Whether it's homophobia or xenophobia.
I think as a woman, I'm interested in protecting my own rights. I'm interested as a queer woman protecting my right to marry.
Yeah, see, well, our race won't get down like that. Man for woman, woman for man.
Whether it's our diverging views of the economy and what it takes to lift people out of poverty.
And I just think generally she had a better plan for someone like me and everyone else who may not be as fortunate.
The problem that has become sharply apparent to me while traveling the country throughout this election cycle is that many of us live in what feels like totally different worlds.
There's this like conversation about all the young white men who are, breaking for Trump. And what are your thoughts on that dynamic specifically?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm neither. I mean, I'm white, but I'm not young, and I didn't vote for Trump, so. Yeah.
But anybody in your life or people that you know, maybe some of the reasons why
I'm from California, so I'm fairly out of touch with that. And
we don't watch the same news.
Where do you get your political information when you are looking at politics?
Family. Okay. And friends.
Okay. And did you vote this election?
Yes.
And while it may feel like the different worlds we are living in are irreconcilable, the truth is that we actually live in the same world. We have to share this thing. So I asked Dahate how, in his opinion, we could move forward post-election, and I really appreciated his response.
What would you say to this country then, as it relates to moving forward? I mean, what's your message to America post-election?
I don't know if I have a message. Can I have a second to think about that one?
Yeah, of course.
My message to America going forward is to be mindful, be vigilant, and move as if it's you, even if it's not you. Everybody says they voted for what benefited them best, but did you actually? And then to me, a lot of people, especially from the religious perspective, said they voted for Trump because he was a more faith-based or Christian candidate, but the Bible often talks about free will, and that's a huge principle. So if God gives us free will, why are you looking to take that away from others? So just be considerate and consider, when it could be your rights or the rights of your kids and your loved ones, and move based off that. Move with empathy, move with grace, and be mindful.
Okay, I think I'm gonna call it there. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to get down in the comments and let me know why you think Kamala Harris lost, or maybe the other side, which is why Donald Trump won. I'd love to see your thoughts down in the comments. Please be sure to like the video and subscribe on your way down there. I have some really good stuff in the works for you all, so make sure you are locked in. And while we're here, I just want to say a huge thank you to you all for this thing. Most of you all have no idea that I started making videos on the internet here on YouTube way back when in 2007. Not the whole time. So to have this and to reach 100K on YouTube is insane, and it's literally because of you. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you've been around since those way back when days, those videos have been private for a very long time. But if you've been subscribed since the OG days, let me know in the comments so we can have like a little mini reunion and celebrate this. Seriously, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. As always, I am grateful that you're here, my friends. Until next time, peace.